of March 28th. There's a lot on the agenda, but I don't think we're actually going to cover it all. I don't know that it all needs to be covered. Annual work plan, town report, which has to be approved. Update on Gumps Farm, discussion of CPC signs on projects, airport property, Myrtle and Gold Street, H. Olive Day Playground, which is a warrant article, Highland Lake, and we don't have a public hearing tonight, do we? No, we're setting one. Yeah. Okay. So that's about that. So I think we might as well start with, let's start with the town report, which isn't going to be very interesting for people who are not here. I did submit it. Anyone have a chance to look at it?
I did read it. I thought it was quite good.
I did too.
Looks good.
There you go.
Thank you, Cindy.
So
Yes.
we'll
Great
just
job.
need a vote to approve it.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Town report is formally approved.
Can I ask that the committee members be listed?
They're listed on a separate page now.
Yeah, I know, it's horrible that way. They're doing that for everything?
That one's
Yep.
done.
Okay. I was just gonna, good. Okay.
Yep, that's the current formatting. So work plan, town report, done. Gumps Farm, the update on that, let me think. Ann's been finessing the playground a little bit. We're kind of doing the dot the i's and cross the t's, making sure everything's in place. All the bid paperwork should be just about done, and it would be approved, read over and approved by either Jack Hathaway or Town Council before it goes out. Ann decided one of the big holdups was she decided on a surfacing, which is called the Smarty surfacing for anyone who's interested. And one of the other things, do you have you can pass that out, or I can hold it up.
What's all this? I didn't get it. Maybe I could just.
She went over all the playground structures, like, in great
That's your
detail
copy
to make
yours.
sure that, railings and everything. And one of the things on the, this is going to be the Grange structure. I'll hold it for the camera. And one change that was made on this, you can see there's an opening up in the window here. It shows it with bars, but they're going to be that clear
Bubble window.
like those bubble windows instead of the bars, which should be a lot more fun.
Some of the colors are going to be changed. Anna thinks the colors are too drab.
Right.
She wants to brighten it up.
Yeah, so there are minor color changes going in from what these were.
On one
Yeah.
side, it's the school. On the other side, it's the Grange.
Right. What did I have? Oh, that was the schoolhouse. Sorry.
Yeah,
This one
isn't
is the
that cool?
Grange. My mistake. Still, where the bars are is going to be bubble windows. So, sorry, I got
A
my
sense
buildings
of
mixed
scale?
up. What?
A sense of scale of that opening?
I don't have a sense of scale of that opening.
What, of this little door here?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how tall.
Well, I imagine it's the size of,
That's an
you know,
upstairs.
somebody who's, under 5 feet, a little kid.
You know how tall it is?
That's for a little kid to go in.
That's
Not for like a small guy.
Without ducking.
Well, that tube is what about?
That's for real little kids.
So
This is a small kids playground.
Yeah, this is for little kids to go in.
Cindy,
Another structure.
they decided on the Smarty playground
Yes.
mats.
Yes.
They must be anchored, right?
I would imagine.
Because they describe them on the website as mats, and I didn't know what that meant.
It's the top surfacing that goes over all the padding that goes underneath.
Okay.
And Ann Proto actually went to several different playgrounds and looked at several different surfacing systems because she had another one under consideration, serious consideration, and this one was the one that seemed to be holding up the best.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. On,
want me to pass them on?
that, Recreation approved for Ann to go down to Baltimore to observe the pouring of the playground. We were hoping where it was for Gump's Farm and Kids Place, that CPC could pay for half the cost.
I mean, what do people think?
Pay for half the cost of what?
Her flight down to Baltimore.
Why did she
Yeah.
have to go to Baltimore?
She went to absorb the pouring, some of the playground things, because there wasn't one around here.
Up on the Smarty surface.
You're asking us to approve Ann's flight?
If CPC could pay for half of it, we approved up to $500.
How much was her, where'd she go?
Baltimore.
Baltimore.
She probably had to stay, did she have to stay overnight?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't know exactly how much it costs, Paul. We just authorized up to 500.
We authorized up to 500 for what?
Recreation did.
Recreation did.
Oh,
Oh, so she's got
Recreation
500 covered.
authorized,
Oh, recreation is authorized.
and to spend up to 500 to go down to Baltimore to observe. I don't know exactly what she spent.
And why did she go? I'm
To observe
confused.
the pouring of,
There's none of these playground surfaces basically within driving distance.
I see.
so, but why would we be asked to support that?
so it would cost more than
It's part
500?
of the Gump's Farm development.
But
Well, I understand that,
That's
but was there anything in the bids for Gump's Farm expenditures to cover outside, town
Travel.
employees to go down and visit the manufacturing facility?
No, that wasn't,
No.
there was nothing in when we did
I mean,
that.
No.
personally, I wouldn't support it. I mean, but if you guys,
wait, can I ask one question? So she went to watch them pour a playground,
Yes.
not ours.
but why did,
Of course not.
I mean, was that to help her make her decision?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
because she didn't feel comfortable making a decision on a surfacing, not actually seeing one in place.
That was the closest one of the Smarty Playground is in Baltimore. We're the first ones in the Northeast.
There's one maybe, there might have been one in, somewhere in New York, maybe. But I think it was probably the most reasonable one to get to.
It was the only one in the process of being developed.
Okay.
If the vote turns out to be no, it's no. We're hoping that part of it could be offset with the CPC.
So the 500 from the Recreation Commission didn't cover the expenses?
It did.
Oh,
We approved it. We were hoping that CPC could,
You want to
Pay
offset some
for
of
part
that
of
money.
it.
You want to take some of that money from us and put it back into your account.
yes, yes.
But I don't think, I don't think you, do you mean the CPC general budget, or do you mean the Gump's Farm project development budget?
I don't think it really matters. I mean,
It
I
doesn't
think
matter.
it's not,
I think
it's
it
not
does.
identified in
It
the
certainly-
project.
It does
certainly
matter.
But-
Yeah.
So it could come out of the
I
operating.
mean, yeah, I don't know that we fund airfare out of any account that we manage.
Well, we have an administrative account.
Right.
Well,
If we-
exactly, but.
And administrative accounts can be, researched to check on projects.
Right.
So it can,
It's the equivalent of an
But isn't-
appraisal cost.
Isn't
It's-
something
Yeah, it's
like
that-
that usually asked beforehand
Yeah,
as opposed to after the fact?
Yeah.
Well, that's where the recreation vote came in.
Yeah, there was no, Recreation had met after, before the CPC meeting.
And you don't know what the expenditure was so far?
No,
You don't have?
I'm just throwing this out. If it
You're the
falls out
messenger.
flat in the,
You're the
Don't shoot the
messenger.
messenger.
you know,
I think maybe we might be able to look at it at our next meeting if we were
Right.
to see what it actually cost to fly down to Baltimore or
Yeah.
whatever the expenses were, and then we could
Yeah,
look
if
at
you
it.
can do-
Yeah.
Just do a little application and
Yeah.
come
Well,
in and we'll.
Can I get a sense of whether or not people, would anybody, does it matter if it's $10 or $500?
No, not to me.
I don't think I could support it.
Yeah, I don't think.
I would
can
be
support it
worried
either.
about setting a precedent that would be difficult to, if it happened. I think that.
I don't know if I can vote on this, but
On an expenditure, I would think.
Yeah,
That's
this is a-
actually,
yeah.
Paul, one of the questions, one of the reasons I asked, is it CPC, is it Gump's Farm or administrative? I think Cindy's right. She said it can come on, it's administrative cost. Yeah, why can't you vote on an
Yeah.
administrative
if
cost?
you want to make, if you want
I
to
don't
It's not-
propose it
It
as
is
an
not part of the
administrative
Gump's
cost,
Farm,
go ahead.
it's not part of the Gump's Farm budget. That was the first question you asked. Is
Right.
it in the scope?
No.
No, it's not in the scope. So it goes to the administrative budget.
Okay.
So that you're free. I mean, I think,
Yeah.
given
I
all
agree.
my
As far as
experience
the
with
vote.
conflict of interest.
Are
I
you
take
poll-
that
are you-
test twice a
Are you
year.
polling us?
I'm not polling you because I'm not chairman. I just want to get a sense, personal sense, of whether or not it mattered.
Does the chairman want to
I'm,
poll?
Chairman can take a poll, sure. We'll take an informal poll. I will go on the record for stating I think it's an allowable expense from our operating budget.
I think it is
Agreed
too.
it would have been better if it had come first, but I understand the timing of meetings didn't work that way and the timing of her trip, so I understand that. So that's my personal opinion.
If it's an allowable offense, I think we have to, offense.
Yeah.
If it's an allowable expense, Cindy, I caught that from you,
I
because
know
you already
it.
did that once
I already
tonight.
did it.
If it's an allowable expense, we should at least consider a formal request, and, you can think about it between now and then, I guess, but we should probably consider it instead of, we don't even have a request, except for Tom saying, can you reimburse us for half of a number I don't know?
Right.
So,
Paul?
Yeah, just for the record, I probably wouldn't support it, only from the standpoint that there's other means of viewing, the manufacturing of parts associated with this. I don't see the relevance. It wasn't for us. This material wasn't for us. It was just a process that she went down because she didn't feel comfortable with. But yet, the people who spec'd out the product felt it was a good match for us. So I don't understand why we would be asked to fund a trip. So I would probably
Chime
say
in?
no.
You can abstain if you wish.
Well, I sort of agree with Paul's reasoning.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
do too.
Me too. I mean, you can watch it on YouTube.
Yeah.
She wanted to see it actually, see it.
Yeah.
Touch it, feel it, see it there. Because, like I said, there isn't one, so I know her
But I
reasoning.
just kind of think that making a decision to do something and then after the fact, nothing personal, it's got nothing to do personally with Ann Proto. I think it's anybody who is investigating how a project might proceed. I just think that usually that's done beforehand.
Why
We
wouldn't that
ask-
come out of the town budget?
Well,
That's
what
all,
he said,
he's just checking sources.
recreation,
Yeah, I mean, doesn't the town have a budget, for administrative travel and stuff like that?
I don't know if they do that.
Yeah.
Right,
I mean, I don't
neither
know
do
why we would be asked to
It hardly
fund that.
matters at this point. The majority has spoken.
All right,
Yeah,
majority, the straw poll says,
all right.
Do you want to, let me see, let's see. Oh, let's do the playground. So I did hear they've been, each all day, and the superintendent's office has been scrambling to get new numbers for the playground. This is a warrant article on the town meeting for our viewers, and when they came in last time at our last meeting, they had pretty good sense of their costs, but a few items were identified that had not been included, the primary one being a well, and I don't think they had a walking path in either, which I think we had discussed. So they were coming back to us with firmer costs, and they've been actually working very hard to get them. So I did pass out a revised budget, and coincidentally, it comes to the amount that we plugged in.
Amazing.
Amazing.
It doesn't have
Exactly.
the contingency. It
Well,
doesn't have the contingency.
I asked, she said that they don't have a contingency in there. However, when I looked at the original application, there was a contingency in the original one.
And when we did our, back of the napkin calculation at the last meeting, we had one in there too.
Right. So,
These are budget numbers. These aren't bids, right? This is just budget numbers, right?
right.
Yeah.
These are
we've
the
not
estimates
got-
of what their costs are.
Oh,
we've
it's
not
actually,
gotten
some of these are
formal-
professionally estimated.
They're all professionally estimated.
Yeah, but I mean, we haven't gone out to bid on this or anything like that.
Can't, yeah.
It's a warrant,
Yeah,
article.
yeah, okay, all right, no,
Yeah.
right, okay.
So, this is their revised budget. They've offered to give us the actual quotes, but this just came over today because they were finalizing it up. You'll see the well is in now, in the irrigation system for 14,000. I don't know if the fencing was in,
Fencing was in at 12,000.
okay. So,
She had a bid last, at the meeting too.
So are we doing the same surfacing as at Gump's?
I think they might.
It's the same
This was wood
price
chips,
as
I
they
thought.
had in
Oh,
February.
no, you're right, it's wood chips.
Yeah.
$100,000 worth of wood chips.
Fancy wood
It's
chips.
the fancy 5-bar stuff,
Sheesh.
yeah. So, yeah, they had,
There was a description about that. There was a discussion about that.
She went into great detail. Yeah.
They're not the things that come out the chute of a landscaper.
no,
It's, you know.
No,
No,
Yeah,
they're
no.
not.
no.
It's
called-
the up and coming. It sounded good. I couldn't.
I don't know what it sounded like, but except it sounded like it was going to last longer
Yeah.
than 5 years.
right. So, we put the warrant article in for the 350,000. That's what they've come up with.
Well, I don't recommend going above 350,000, but I think it's not a good practice to not have a contingency. But that's
I don't know, but
because
they're
we're not
hoping,
going back for additional money on
No,
a
they're
project we
hoping
never
that-
have.
they're hoping that this stuff, when they actually go out to bid, that it'll
Yeah.
come in under. So, it could be that they've overestimated a little bit on some of them, I don't know.
They also increased their school contribution.
Yeah, to 110, it was 107, I think.
Yeah,
It was,
yeah.
well, on my sheet here, it says 103, but then I wrote down 107.
I remember 107.
Well, 103 was the cost estimate for town of Norfolk.
Oh.
Cost estimate that was in the back of the,
Okay.
Oh, so they've come up with more.
that was in the last,
Few,
That was in
few
the first.
thousand.
Yeah.
yeah, 107
sounds-
school department.
So they'll come up with their own contingency, their own overbids.
Yeah.
So we voted this once. I guess we can take a formal vote to approve this number as final. And then I can tell Board of Selectmen.
Can we also, at the same time, let's talk about where the, under which reserve accounts it comes under? 350,000? We only have available, as of February, in open space, 100,000. So, do we want to zero out our open space reserves, or do we want to leave a value in there? Open space, obviously, being open space and recreation, so
Right.
it can be there. I personally wouldn't recommend it getting zeroed out, even though new money will be coming in June. It won't be of much dollar value.
It might be just as easy just to take it off from undesignated. I'm not really sure.
It's certainly that's where we'll see the least impact. That makes a lot of sense.
Maybe you could take 50,000 out of,
Yeah. I would take less than 50, but if what you're thinking, Betsy, is
Just half.
that, but also the idea of tying, it's easier to tie a project to a bucket when you have at least some of the money coming from it. So, so we'll always be able to put our projects in the right category.
Right.
Be easier for us accounting-wise to figure out how much money was actually spent for each type of category, if we have some of it coming out of there. But going down to 50,000 is really low for open space.
I don't really see a difficulty in figuring out where this is coming from, even if it's all coming out of the undesignated.
It's not a difficulty. It's just it's a question of how you it's a question of how you want to do this in terms of it. It's part of the. You have to, if you're going to do a vote on something that we've already voted on, you might as well vote on what we haven't voted on
True.
yet, which is where the money is coming from.
Yeah.
So, I agree with Betsy. Some of it should come out of open space, but I wouldn't go to a full. Just here. So I'd go to
But why
35.
not? I mean, it doesn't really make any difference.
Usually.
Oh, okay.
If another open space project comes out,
It'll all come out of undesignated.
True.
The idea of tying everything to a certain category, maybe I could very well be anal, very possibly, except that every type of project has a category.
Yeah. All right.
So getting some money out of each when we can has some value.
All right. Well, what do you suggest? 25?
Yeah, I was going to say 35. It's 10%.
Oh, all right. You can do that. That makes sense. All right. So 35,000 coming from open space, and that leaves 315. Any discussion on that? Any other thoughts? All right. You want to make the motion, Andrea?
I make a motion that we accept the estimate for the H. Olive Day playground budget at $350,000, with $35,000 coming from the open space reserves and $350,000 coming from the undesignated reserves of the Community Preservation Fund.
315, is it?
Mhm.
15 and
315.
35, yep. Any other discussion? Oh, is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I will let the Board of Selectmen know, and it is a vote.
Do we know when we're going to the advisory board?
They've already been.
Oh, my God.
They
What was
called
their
me in for a
feeling?
preliminary, oh gosh, a couple weeks ago. And I told them that I thought the number might be changing, but it's not, and they were all on board. They wanted to just do very early preliminary discussions with folks. So I didn't hear any objections to the H. Olive Day playground there.
They asking for it to come back?
I told them if they wanted more detail, they'd be best to be hearing it from the school and from recreation. At the moment, no, and I think if I tell them this is a final number, I don't know that there'd be any further discussion on it. Let's see. Let's see. How about, why don't you do your project?
All right, okay,
So this is Highland Lake.
Yep, I got a little project. You guys can decide whether you want to get behind it or not. So, so every morning when I head out for my daily work routine, I head over to Franklin, and if you all know the Chestnut Street, I think it is, where the ponds are on the left-hand side, they turned that whole area. It's Pleasant. Okay, sorry. That whole area into a conservation, recreation area.
Used to be a cranberry bog.
Where's this?
What street?
As you go down Main Street and it splits, you go to the right, and you just head.
In Norfolk.
No,
Franklin.
Oh,
Franklin.
Franklin, no wonder.
So I've been watching this project that's been going on for quite some time, probably since the fall, or at least the fall, and they knocked down the house, and there's those two big ponds and all that stuff there. So I said, well, I'm wondering what they're doing, and I kind of, I figured out that they were putting in dams, or at least that's what it looked like. So Jeffrey Nutting, who's the town manager, comes into Panera every morning, and I asked him, and he said, yeah, that's a dam project. So they're putting up 2 dams. There's a total of, I think it's 5 or 6 dams there. And they're letting 3 of those dams fail because they're inconsequential to the total project. And that whole area is going to be turned into walking trails and dams, and so there'll be water retention and all that good stuff. And I asked him how much it was, and he said it came in just under $800,000 for that project. And it's a pretty extensive project if you've driven by there. I don't know if you've seen it. So I thought, well, geez, we have a piece of property that's kind of in similar shape, Highland Lake, and I was wondering, when we bought the property, I thought, well, what are we doing with regards to water retention in Highland Lake? And we really never really addressed that. And, there's always posts every summer about how the lake is dropped and the owner of the dam and the this and the that and so on and so forth.
Boards.
So I thought that it might be worth investigating, looking at putting in a dam in front of the trestle. So in other words, the town controls the water, right?
We talked about that at the time of.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we talked about it. Yeah.
I think
And
Mr. Roach. Conservation.
I think it's a
No,
I think it's
we
a
talked-
pretty extensive
CPC
project if we
talked
get
about
behind it.
with Butch.
So I
this is
called
way
up
back.
the company that's constructing the dams, and they put me in touch with the engineering company, Pear Corporation's out of Rhode Island, but they have an office in Foxborough. And the young man from Pear came over. We walked on the property. We went down to the trestle, so he saw exactly where it was. And I said, he said, well, I said, do you think you could pull together, like, if there was a budget figure, right? He said, yeah, we can do that. But it's time and energy and engineering because they have to get in the water, they have to do this, they have to do some research. There's expenditures involved with pulling together budget numbers, much like, what we did with Gumps and Kyle Zeeks and all that stuff. So he came in with an appraisal of, to figure out the costs associated with that. And that's what this is. It's an appraisal of costs to conduct engineering studies, research, pulling together numbers, putting people in the pond, looking to see whether it makes more sense to buy the property that the current dam is on and just fix that one, or to, in fact,
Make a new one.
put up a new dam.
I think Mr. Roach is dying to get rid of that dam.
Possibly, but you don't know which way is less expensive.
Right.
And so I asked him if he could pull some numbers together and just what it would cost for him to pull the budget numbers together, because I think it could probably be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yep, I
So
agree with that.
he came up with an appraisal cost of $3,000 to pull together engineering designs, budget numbers, construction budget numbers, putting people in, doing the consultation, the work that would be required to consult with the railway people, because it's an active railway, the commuter lines, the railroad people, and, all of that stuff. In return, we would have to supply them with a bunch of stuff, if we know the soil studies, and I know, Andrea, you're familiar with some of the soils down there.
Well, there was, I don't have subsurface soils. We at CPC have a 21E report of the land
Well, we did
uses.
some studies down there, though.
Yeah,
I
it's in
think that, there's concern for heavy metals and,
They have a land use report, but not grabs.
yeah.
You talking about contamination or type of soil?
No, this was 21E. They didn't do subsurface work.
Are you talking about the type of soil that's down there? Or
Well,
are you talking about whether it's contaminated?
there's the type of soil that's in there. That's
In
number one.
the
In
lake
the area,
bottom?
yeah, in the area. And the disturbance of any metals that might be in those subsurfaces.
The report done for the sale was just surface.
Okay. I thought there was stuff done before, though. wasn't
When
there?
was the 21
When we
years?
first looked at buying that property,
When we purchased it.
there was,
When was that?
I thought there were water quality
Long time
tests.
There might be from Board of Health pertaining to the.
Yeah, and I thought that there were samplings taking on the,
There
to
was
to
a-
figure out if there was heavy metals in the water.
There was a sewer line
Right.
and a break.
Yeah.
And so there was investigation by Department
Department of
of
Prisons.
Corrections at the time.
And by CPC, because Earl, I don't know if I'm the oldest one here, but I remember going to Board of Health and asking for records from Board of Health when they were testing it, when it was contaminated by
And I
prison.
remember it being very hard to gather those records.
It's
did we
all
act-
kind of vague.
Yeah, I remember there being a very good and conscientious effort, but I don't know
We didn't really
what
come
we
out with.
got other than stories.
I see.
Well, I remember going to Concom one night, and it wasn't that long ago, and it was when the people in the neighborhood were talking
all
about.
went.
Yeah, right. Remember that?
Lake study, a lake
bench.
study
Lake
on the
study.
water
That's
quality.
what it
We
was.
did that
the
lake
water
study
quality.
last
Water
year.
That was
quality
last year.
Right,
sampling.
but let me just say this. There was a comment made by someone, and it could have been, I don't know who it was, could have been Mr. Weddleton, it could have been somebody, it was somebody sitting at that table who said that their thought was that the town didn't want the liability of a dam. The town didn't want to own the dam because it was a liability.
Well-
now, I know I didn't make that up, so somebody said it.
No,
and,
that's
and
very
that's
real.
probably
That's
true. The current dam in its condition is in, we all know it's in disrepair. Yeah, I mean, there's probably some liability. What he was able to tell me was that that dam is a very low-risk dam. So in other words, if it fails completely, it means that the loss of life and or damage to property, it was minimal.
Right, it's only a couple
So
properties.
it's not a big risk dam, right?
The reason at the time of sale, the CPC had a big discussion about this because the dam is not on the lake property. It's a separate property.
Right.
And so at the time, Butch Vito, then DPW, was saying rather than address the actual dam, putting a control structure
Right.
at our side of a very stable MBTA embankment that's new is a better. It's a surer bet.
It's a better solution.
It's a
Yeah.
better solution. It's a better solution as a lot less risk.
Yeah.
It was if we had to get in the dam business, it was the one to do,
Yeah.
not to get involved in an existing structure.
That means then we own a dam.
That means
Yeah,
you
but
do
if
own
we
a
have
dam.
Actually, it means we own a water control structure.
Right, but if it's properly constructed and.
Because it's the whole earth.
So beyond the dam itself, I'm thinking in terms of not so much the neighbors would certainly benefit from higher water level marks.
yeah.
You know. And then secondly, with the control structure, through lowering water during the winter months, you can kill off vegetation.
Yeah.
It's a more natural way of weed control that doesn't impact, species and, animals and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So, that was my thought. And then, maintaining a higher water level in the summer certainly helps, with regards to the weed-choked pond that it
And the
it
algae
turns
and all
And
into.
the odor, I think
Yeah.
that was a
Yeah.
big
One of the
issue.
things that those residents fight with from time to time, and I went over there one afternoon to help them, is that those openings in the wall, I don't know what you call them,
Oh, get
Weird.
stuffed full of stuff.
whatever it is, it gets full of stuff, and it actually causes the lake levels to rise further than they want to.
Yeah.
So if we did this the right way, that might help alleviate that,
Yeah.
so that you wouldn't have all this stuff plugging up those holes.
Yeah.
Another reason, putting the structure on the lake side of the embankment is that we're at the same elevation of the water. Whereas if you remember back to those discussions, the actual dam is really is a good distance down.
It's further down.
further down, like more than a few feet down. So when he takes one board off, it drops a couple feet. So there's an elevation change,
Yeah.
and then there's the board being picked up. So a lot more water gets lost. So
Yeah.
it'd be a more,
And we don't
would be
have
able
any
to
control
modify.
about him doing that.
Right.
No, but they have, and I understand from, conversation on the street that when CPC didn't come forward with dam management at the time of sale, they since developed a working relationship with Mr. Roach.
Who's
Who's
they?
that? Who's
The
they?
neighbors.
The neighbors?
Do you guys don't remember that from the lake? When Concom was doing the lake sampling, water quality
Water quality
sampling,
study.
the neighbor, I thought it was at that point that the neighbor said, we've worked out an arrangement with him so that they
I think I
talk
remember that,
more.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a working relationship is no substitute, though, for having control.
Right.
No.
I'd like to, if the sense on the board is that, yeah, we want to take a look at this, I'd like to get Bob McGee, and I don't know who else.
Yes. Conservation Commission.
Well, it
Even
would
in
be-
this
it would
initial
be-
process.
It would be something that you would have to propose to the Conservation
Right.
Commission.
But I mean, even Bob, even right now, before we even
Yes,
decide on this.
I
yes.
mean, I would be willing
And-
to help out in the pre-part of it, planning and whatever.
Yeah, I didn't reach out to Bob yet.
I
Yeah,
don't
no.
think we
I just-
have any subsurface soil samples, but I expect that now that Community Preservation Office might have all the Highland Lake files in one place. Like all the town files came together for that. So we might have become the repository of all the information it's in town hall. So I don't know that you're going to find much. He does need to know. I just worry a little bit. That pond's got a lot of, it can suck up a lot of money.
That what?
That pond, taking care of the
Expensive.
water quality of the pond is not an inexpensive.
Yeah.
The
as a-
water,
as opposed
managing
to,
managing the water level is one thing. Managing the water level does not get rid of the weeds
No,
Yes, it does.
completely all
Not
by itself.
completely, but it helped, I mean, it's helped Mirror Lake out quite a bit. By lowering that level quite a bit, the weeds start to grow, and then you raise the level, and then they can't get sunlight all of a sudden, and they die off.
Well, don't be careful about people's expectations.
well, I wouldn't oversell it from that standpoint, but certainly, the benefits of a higher water level, Mark, is beneficial to
And a new structure is always
a
beneficial.
new structure.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest part of it is being able to control and have a way to keep that thing from plugging up.
Yeah.
Have better control over the water level.
I mean, have you seen the dams that they're putting in over in Franklin? Have you gone down that road?
No, I don't.
Can you actually walk down and see?
Oh, yeah,
Oh.
just walk down there, because that's, I mean, they're there all day long, there's, tractors and trucks and concrete and
Yeah.
fill and all this stuff going on.
So that
It's
was
it's big project, yeah.
The house right in front there that I think
Yeah, they took the
down.
house down, yeah.
The guy who owned it, those were cranberry bogs.
Yeah,
And
I
then,
guess so,
it was in
yeah.
the paper.
Yeah,
When
okay.
when the town was gifted the property.
Yeah, he gifted it.
And so that they had these two man-made, there were two man-made ponds that
Mm-hmm.
then became like one man-made pond. I remember reading about it. I think it was in the Milford Daily News.
Yeah.
And that, they had this long-term plan for doing exactly what you're saying.
Apparently, they've the company that MAS is the company that did is doing the construction. They're based out of Franklin, so they were the most competitive, and they came in hundreds of thousands of dollars under bid. So
I don't mean this to be a stupid question, but why are they doing this? What is the goal?
it's
What
just
is
a
that?
big it's a big recreation area. Yeah, it's to make it open for the people to enjoy, walk around. They have trails, all sorts of stuff.
Like a parklands.
Yeah, like a parkland. Yeah.
So, what do you think next? I mean, I'm taking it from people
Are we
interested in at
in
least
this?
It sounds
taking a
interesting to
look at
me.
the.
Sounds very interesting, because it could benefit everybody.
Yeah. What do you think next step to just even
Well,
just
if
show
you
this
want to
to
get
Bob?
yeah,
and-
if you want to get Bob involved, I can send it
Yep.
off to him.
I think the money can come out of
That's-
administrative at any
I
point.
think so. because
Can
it's,
can you do some kind of a subcommittee to take it on, to look with Bob and whoever else needs to
Gather
be
the
involved?
records.
And have a meeting outside of this meeting and then have them bring it back to report?
Well, I mean, I don't know, how about Dan and I
Sure.
and Bob or something like that?
Good. Sounds
I mean,
good.
Yeah.
Seeing as how I brought it to the table.
I think that
Would I
sounds
be the
great.
subcommittee meeting?
I would think you guys would be the
As-
guys to do it.
Key guys.
If, keep in mind also, while you're thinking about that, there's another piece of property that we've been interested in the past that expands on the Highland Lake property, not the trailhead, which the town already, allocated money toward, but there's another piece of property in the back that swings around and picks up the little pond that people sometimes skate on behind the cemetery on Main Street. It's an old family from town.
Oh, I know who you're
Man's
talking.
Pond?
The
You talking
man's,
about man?
man's property.
kinda feeds
The man's
into that.
property abuts the town, the land the town purchased.
On the other side of the stream.
The other side of the stream
Mm-hmm.
picks up. So anything when you think about Highland Lake, always think about the possibility of including that property.
That's what they call Man
Are
Pond.
you talking about Man's
Man's
Pond?
Pond is interior, isn't it?
It's what you're talking
Isn't there
about.
another pond that's right on Main Street, a little tiny one that people sometimes skate
That's
on?
on the other side of Man's Pond. So you have that
Yeah.
little thing right here, then you have Man's Pond.
Yeah, Man's Pond is interior.
And if
You don't
you
have
can't
it,
see
there's
it,
no
probably-
public, there's no
Yeah.
public way to
Right.
it. So this, but our Highland Lake property with a little footbridge over the stream onto the man's property is a significant,
So is this,
Is it
is this
significant
is this literally man's
case?
property that's
it's one of their properties.
not Man's Pond, but it's adjacent to?
It's adjacent to our Highland Lake, to the town's Highland Lake property.
I
Don't
know, I
forget
got that
about it.
part, but is it adjacent to Man's Pond?
I think it goes right. It goes up to its shores, and then there's more man's property after that. But this is this was the parcel.
Weren't we looking at
We
the
were
property
looking
down
at it.
there?
Yeah, and they
This
changed
is
their
it.
mind.
I'm telling you not to forget about it. The reason,
No, you mean it's still on the table?
what I'm saying is, please make it still on the table.
When
Please
does
keep
that
it on
go
the
back
table.
to?
You
Do
guys
remember?
become the Highland Lake Subcommittee working on this. Don't forget about that parcel.
In what respect?
It's not for
Future-
sale, is it?
Future
Oh, you are.
future vision
Oh, okay.
of Highland Lake.
You're talking about?
Oh, is you talking about this little
Okay,
piece right
so-
here? The Main
it's
Street?
up to you
That's the
guys.
river.
What?
Get
I say
together
go
with
for it,
Bob.
you guys.
And,
Andrea, we got a map here.
It's completely off. I'm just, if you
I
don't.
think it would benefit both, you know what I
Well,
mean?
yeah, and if you haven't already heard, I'm
don't
not
ask
running
me.
for reelection. I'm off the planning board on April 28th,
Okay.
so this seat's open.
I looked at the
She
Norfolk
broke
Rentham paper, and you
Yeah.
were listed there as, but I guess
As-
it's different. than
Well, I
this.
guess they don't do very good reporting.
Is somebody running in your place?
Yep,
There's two people
Don't
running
touch
for two
screen.
seats.
2 people for 2 seats.
Oh,
Not
ma-
much of an
oh, do
election.
you mean this down here?
It's-
That little
This
teeny-
doesn't have,
Andrea, is it
It's in
your
here.
impression that
Oops.
this is for sale?
no, it's my impression that it's something that we should always keep our eye on and
keep in the back of your
keep
mind.
in the back of your mind.
It
When
might be
they're
surface.
interested,
Did I
we
say
should be interested.
I would
All right.
think it would be part of Man's Pond purchase.
It's right in there. It goes.
All right, let's move on.
We pick up, we
know
we
what you're
own to
talking
here. We own to here.
Check.
It goes from
Yep,
here
check.
over to here.
So on the public hearing, I just need to announce that we're having it, right?
Right here.
All right,
Check.
check,
And I've
done.
advertised.
We have a public hearing at our next meeting, which is Wednesday, April 17. It is our public hearing for our warrant articles, which we have always before a town meeting. So that's April 17 at 7:30. And hopefully, we might be doing the annual work plan as well.
Yes, the annual work plan runs out in June, so this is our ability to get comment on the next draft.
And our warrant articles, the only one that we really have that's not a standard one is the playground, which we discussed earlier, and otherwise, it's a one for our operative and administrative budget, and our 10% annual allocations to each of the categories, that CPA supports open space and recreation, affordable housing, and historic resources. So that is advertised, and that will occur at the next meeting, which everyone will be here. Do you want to discuss the signs, Andrea?
Yeah, for annual work plan?
Oh,
We skip
we
by
can-
that?
I was skipping all over the place.
Oh, okay.
Let's do annual work plan now.
You just mentioned it as part of the warrant articles.
Yep.
We have a work plan from last year. And in the past, I've just taken the annual report, the February finances, and the warrant articles, put them together, kept the same master plan goals, and then looked for input on future projects for the upcoming year, both from the public and from the other board members. So that's the work plan, and does anybody have anything they want to incorporate into that?
You could put the investigation of Highland Lake.
As part of that? Does anybody want to see what it's like to put these pieces together for the April town meeting? Would you like me to do it one last time?
You can do it one last time.
okay.
Michelle, you
I'm
offering?
sure we can figure it out.
No? Are you offering?
Oh, I don't mind if
You want to give it a try?
Yeah, I can do it if you want me to.
Those 3 pieces, if you want to send it to me before the meeting, well before the meeting, it'll give me a chance to edit it
Okay.
and then send it back to you.
All right, yeah, that's fine.
Great.
All right, done and done. The airport property, Tom, you want to fill people in? You didn't go to the meeting, but you got
No.
the email. Do you remember what it, they were they going to work with trustees of reservations over there?
Yeah, I guess the representative of trustee was there, and he showed interest in purchasing the property.
So this just to our viewers, we learned that there was a meeting of neighbors of the airport property, whatever, a few weeks ago, I guess. And
Yeah.
they were trying to investigate ways that they might be able to preserve and protect the property, which is privately owned. So they had a trustees of reservation person.
Yes,
Do you know what their follow-up was?
I don't know, no.
So, there's always been an interest in the airport property,
Yeah.
Always.
right? Especially by this committee in particular.
Yeah.
What's changed about the property that's brought this to the forefront?
The proposal that they were going to put solar panels out there?
Is that still out on the table?
No.
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 In
But
the
it
town,
got
I
people
think
change the zoning.
I think it just, it brought it up to
Motivated
the
people
forefront,
to-
motivated people to be proactive and,
Act.
Yeah.
Did they reach out to Stephen Mazakowski, the property owner?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
One neighbor told me that they're against ball fields out there.
they don't want, I shouldn't speak for them. They weren't, when I've seen them in meetings, they would like to leave it in its current open state,
Yes, yes.
so. All right, well, like I said, wish them good luck.
Yeah.
Keep us up to date.
We'll be, I'm sure that we'll play
I
a
will.
role when the time comes.
Right.
We'll be asked to play a role.
What's our committee's, follow-up on
Nothing, it was just that Tom, being an abutter to the airport, was aware of the meeting, and
Yeah. I was just passing on information.
the signs, Andrea, I know you got a price from I always forget, I have to explain.
Right, yeah.
We were considering, it has been suggested on this committee to invest in some signs that could be placed at ongoing projects stating that they're supported or funded by Community Preservation Act monies. And I think the idea was both while the project was underway and then before a permanent sign got in, that would hopefully be reflecting that as well. So Andrea was going to look into it, and I know she got a estimate, or she got a cost from Conservation Commission of some signs that they bought.
Yeah, it was a
think it was-
dollar figure by itself. You remember it?
It was like $100.
It was like, it was,
Like
yeah, less,
89 or
yeah,
something.
yeah, just less than $100 is what I remember too.
Per sign.
No, for like 6 of them.
Oh, that was not clear. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
That's better. And it was the kind, she didn't have the description with it, but
They were
you
like
described
12 by
it as-
18-inch metal signs, and then I think they were just 2 colors, but it was, I don't know, like what the process is, like silk screen or something, however they call that, making signs.
Like, would they like bake it on?
I don't know if it was baked on or painted. I haven't.
Okay.
I had actually seen one up close, but
And it had the small
stick in the
sticks
ground?
and go into the ground.
no, these were just
Not
signs that were to be mounted onto some pole or
So you'd
something.
have to make your own.
Or you screw it in.
So I was envisioning it actually being attached to a chain link fence or something that's existing.
Right.
So like, for example, where would you use those? What kind of a project would you
Well,
use those on?
Could have gone even the affordable homes, because even though the Affordable Housing Trust is the one who's undertaking the building, the land was still purchased with CPA
Right.
monies, and the Affordable Housing Trust is
Has their own
heavily
signs.
funded with CPA monies. So it could go there. It could have
Yep.
gone, when we do Gumps, there could be a,
The idea was that as the project is under development, the sign, we have a stable of signs, and we move them through the process, so people see it, and then we've been in the habit of making a sign part of the permanent
right.
structure.
If the HOD playground goes forward,
Putting a sign in was part of the requirement.
right.
Although I didn't see that in the article, and I didn't see it in the budget, but we know that to be true. So maybe it's in the minutes.
But anyway,
So the idea is a permanent sign gets put up by the project, but this is a temporary sign that we move,
I get it. Yeah.
just like the guy who seal coats your driveway.
yep, exactly.
Exactly.
Um,
Doesn't need to be much
Advertise
more
it.
complicated than that either, in a way.
You're just looking
Right.
for
Just temporary.
simple
something that's not going to blow away.
lawn signs.
Simple lawn signs that, or nailed in the some of the things you saw, the 3 examples I put in a PowerPoint and then sent around, and then didn't print out tonight. One of them, like in the town of Peabody, was, as you described, it had the ability to be screwed onto a post. And it was meant, that was a permanent one. The town of Stowe was like the realtor sign, but it was very heavy metal, and it was stuck into the ground of a farm that they were purchasing. And Matt's designs worked, were reminiscent of the way the Stowe design, was done. And then,
I
what
don't
else did
remember
we
the other
see?
One of them was hard to see. And I know,
And towns are using logos too.
right. I think we should certainly, my opinion is we should pursue a small set of, I mean, how many projects do we have going on at once? But
No, yeah,
No more
I
than
think
six.
six would be fine. And I think DPW or the prisoners are likely to be able to fabricate them.
Probably would be good to have them be in metal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Everything
and
else
building-
deteriorates, everything else deteriorates.
and it can be moved around
Yeah.
Right.
on heavy posts and such.
Yeah, so I just found Marie's quote to be floating in space, and so I couldn't really nail it into.
I have some of the emails here, but I don't have the one with the.
Well, it'll be easy enough to start looking at them and getting some figures.
Cindy has a shorter list of emails apparently, because she remembered the number like that.
And I know, I do know what the town of Eastham says. And they just have these blue and white signs, and it says project supported by.
Yeah.
So it's
It's very
Supported,
nice.
you know, that's kind of the only thing. Supported can mean fully funded, partially funded.
Or we just like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, or we just
Yeah.
like.
Like
Yeah.
this a lot.
That was
Yeah,
kind of, that was exactly, one of the things I was thinking of with sending those PowerPoints is what do the words say?
How about sponsored by?
It's sponsored's a good,
Oh, I think
but
it's
these
more
are,
than supported, yeah.
yeah.
Definitely.
We
I
can
didn't
work
get
on
to the
that,
support
right?
end.
I mean,
Your town dollars at work.
Right, is the
It
message.
is, you know, that's one way to put the message out there.
All right, well, you're going to be off the board, so who wants to take the task of?
It's really getting it. I think if we could get it into the annual work plan and get them fabricated for the next calendar year, we'd be in great shape.
Yeah. I actually know somebody who owns a sign company.
Well, and we also know Bob McGee. So while you guys are talking to him,
Oh, we'll take on the project train.
We'll bring it up.
Yeah,
I'm just low and I'm just.
You guys speak to
Let the
Bob McGee,
projects
you
go.
could ask him.
Yeah, you're so good, Andrew.
Well, couldn't we decide right now what we want the signs to
We
say?
got an editor for God's sakes.
This project supported by the Norfolk
But
CPC.
supported- didn't like supported.
Not
No,
supported.
that's too vague.
why don't we all think about
Sponsored.
it? And
Sponsored.
like,
Think
How about
yeah,
funded?
think about it
Paid
and
for.
see.
Funded.
Paid
Well, I
for.
mean, what's wrong with funded?
What's
By
funded?
CPC funds.
And how about your CPC?
Yeah, well, you can't fund from.
I think
can't
people
fund with
should
funds
make
paid for.
submissions and you can,
Yeah.
we can vote on
I
it.
don't think,
Okay.
what's.
Good. That'll be something to discuss in the
funded
annual
sort of
Decisions by
implying
committee
it's
is-
100% funded?
A lot.
What'd you say, Betsy?
If you say funded, this project funded by Norfolk CPC, I don't
Doesn't
think,
mean what.
does that mean
percent-
100%? Is it kind of implying that the whole project is,
To me, it does.
How much are these signs?
Less than well,
get two?
How much are these signs?
$100 for six.
We're talking way too much time for this.
I know it.
Come on.
Everybody, if you're really interested, send your submission to Cindy and then we'll
Submit,
we'll
and then
vote.
We'll vote.
Right.
And Matt had his designs.
Right, he made a little logo for us.
He made a logo, and the question is, do you want that logo?
I also meant to print those out and bring
Well,
them.
let's
and I
see the
forgot.
submissions of logos with the
Dan,
submissions
you
of
have
wording
that.
at the next meeting and figure out what to do.
All right,
Should say,
done.
this project sponsored by Norfolk CPC.
Okay.
All right, so the last thing on the property is Myrtle Gold, and the only,
I have to call the natural
you were
resource.
going to follow up,
Now,
right?
I was going to follow up with Ann Proto. And there's always something that, stops things from moving forward. Can she go out to Westboro to meet with this woman? Or does she want a conference call in? That's what I have to, we got to get those three parties. It's a Westboro person and me and Ann. So I'll
do
have.
what?
Because you're
To do
just
what?
going to discuss if if a lower use, all right, if you recall on this property, it has a National Heritage Endangered Species restriction on it.
Since the meeting, I've gotten that information.
Right, which I sent to you.
Right.
Merlin
And,
Gold?
Myrtle and Gold.
Merlin Gold.
What's the restriction?
It's the turtle.
There's a habitat management plan for
pesky
a
turtles.
subdivision.
So what they did was they drew the subdivision, and then like every little spot that's not in someone's yard is about it was
Protected.
12 acres, five used and 7 protected, or vice versa.
I think it turned. She kept saying it only amounts to 5.
5 usable
Available.
acres. So what we wanted to find out was
She.
And
Yeah.
Proto.
So what we wanted to find out was if we change the configuration, you're putting a much less intensive use on it. If you're just talking fields and parking, there's no impervious surfaces except for a handicap spot maybe. Would they allow less to be set aside
And in
and not
reconfiguring
touched?
and in reconfiguring the uses on the site, would they change the was there anything particular about the areas that were saved, or was it just what it looks like?
Which is that they just took the
areas that were not in a road and not in a private lot. So were those particular areas, or were those available areas?
How do we find that out?
It's talking to the reviewer that wrote the letter. So now I have a copy of the letter, so I have the reviewer's name, and I got Ann on the phone to get the three of us together. I'll
Do
have
you
an
think Ian
update.
needs to be on? I mean,
I could, if
Just
the two of us,
eyeballs.
the two of us could have the conversation, I could have the conversation with this other person in like a minute.
Yeah, I mean, just.
Have a
Okay.
conference
I can do
call.
that.
Have a conference
It's
call.
much easier for me.
I mean, if they just say, nope, it's going to be, if 7 is protected now, 7's going to continue to be protected, then that's all we need to
Right,
know.
right.
Yeah,
If she said, oh, no, with lesser use or less harsh use.
Not residential use
Yeah.
or not
we
paved.
can, we can have a little less
driveways.
protected or something.
yep,
Yeah, just find that out.
yep. As a matter of fact, I have it right here in my hand now.
Okay.
Right.
Anybody else? I'm not going to, we have the committee handbook on here. I'm not going to deal with that. I don't think we're prepared to deal with that. So, anyone else have any other new business? And if not, we will have a record short meeting.
Way to go, Cindy.
All right, so, hearing no new business, I'll entertain a motion to close.
I motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
And
Second.
Discussion. We are adjourned. 8:45.
Thank you, wow, great.
It's a vote. It's a wrap.